Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Power of Attunement YouTube channel. My name is Sece Foster, and I am an attunement practitioner and a spiritual teacher here at the Sunrise Ranch School of Attunement. And I want to invite you, if you're just landing here, if you're interested in your spiritual awakening, if you're interested in healing, if you're interested in doing all you can to heal the world and make the world a better place, I'm going to invite you to like and subscribe and to keep tuning into this channel. We have lots of wonderful content that we plan on bringing because we are all about the spiritual regeneration of humanity. What we see, what we believe, and what we see in the world is that there is this spiritual crisis, a crisis of heart and mind, because heart and mind is part of our it's our human makeup, but it is also part of our spiritual makeup, right? We are these spiritual beings having a human experience, and our thoughts and feelings are our consciousness. Like those are the filters through which we are seeing and feeling and moving in this world. So today I want to talk about forgiveness. This is a huge thing. I think we all know this, right? We all know that forgiveness is essential, and sometimes we don't really understand how to do that for real. So from an energy medicine standpoint, I want to talk about this, and I want to bring a practice that is very potent in clearing these kinds of energies, the energies of resentment, the energy of revenge, the energy of violence, like anger, condemnation. These are essential as we are watching what's playing out in the Middle East this week. I mean, it's so horrible to see what's happening in Israel and to see the attacks from Hamas, but you know what? There is a history there. There is this part of the human experience that is playing out there. There's a history of violence against one another. I mean, I think it would be hard to really go back in time to find out when was the first occurrence between these tribes of the ancient world, right? Between this, the Jewish people and the Palestinians. There is a history. We all have a history. We all have a story, right? I'm pretty sure if you're watching this that there have been moments in your life when you've been betrayed, maybe even abused, you've been hurt, lied to, cheated. And so what do we do with that, right? I can only speak for myself. I know before, I was awakened, before I got wiser, especially as a kid, getting back at my sister or my cousin or, whoever, the classmate. Like if they did harm to me, I wanted to do harm back to them, right? This is part of the human nature. And what I do know that through conscious practices, through allowing our sovereign self, our spirit, our soul to enter into this human experience, we can transform and transmute those part of the human experience that continue to play out as war within ourselves and war in the world. This is our work to do. I myself, you yourself, cannot do a whole lot of anything about the tragedies that are happening in Israel right now. We cannot physically go and do something to protect the innocent. And trust and know that innocence is being harmed and destroyed on both sides. When we retaliate. So this topic is so vital for what is happening in the world, because what I know, and as I speak these words, I want you to feel into it. Does this feel true for you? Like if there is a disturbance in your family, if there's fighting and there's all this going on, it's like, how do we change it? We first have to change ourselves, right? We have to do our own inner work. And when we can then bring peace to our families, and then maybe our families then full of peace and full of love can go out in their communities and make changes. And then the communities change the nation, and the nation changed the world. This is based on a poem from Lao Tzu that I really believe in, that is like, it begins with me. I take responsibility for bringing peace to the world, and I only can start with myself, the same as you. So I want to talk about the power of forgiveness from an energy standpoint. There is a particular practice that I love, and it's from the Kahuna tradition. It's from Hawaii, and it's called Ho'oponopono. This particular forgiveness practice is really kind of seen as an energy clearing, and it can be part of your daily practice. Like, you can say the prayer silently to yourself. It's a very simple prayer, and it goes something like this, and we'll repeat it again so that you really get it if you're not familiar with it. Here's how it goes. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Now, when I say those words, you might have some alarm bells going. It's like, why am I apologizing? That makes no sense. Well, I'm going to invite you to, let's take a view of this. Let us imagine that we're not separate from each other. Let's imagine that we're connected to everyone. Like, vibrationally, psychically, emotionally, we have a connection to everyone. And what tends to happen for us as people is when we look at someone through eyes of judgment and condemnation, we're angry with them, we have judgments about them, we have resentments with them. Energetically, what happens is we have an invisible line between us. We get ourselves connected. We get ourselves into a quantum entanglement. And then we start having these karmic things play out between us. And so again, if we look at what's happening in the Middle East at this time, this is what this is. These are part of the invisible reality of the cosmos. This is an invisible reality. We are constantly having vibrational conversation with one another. Our lips can be moving and saying something good, but if our heart is full of judgment and condemnation, it's felt. And so looking at from that place of we are one, and of what I'm seeing in my world is part of me, I can right now take responsibility for that and do this practice. So the invitation is to bring this practice more deeply into our lives. Here's what I know from my own experience working in my relationships. So if you're married, any of you out there married? Okay. If you're married, you may notice that sometimes there are patterns of resentment, blame, shame that kind of get going in the relationship that you have. You've attracted this person into your experience to do this work. If you're conscious, right? If you're conscious, you can do this work and you can bring great healing, not only to yourself, but to them. So in my experience with this practice, there have been times when things have gotten to a really bad space between my partner and I. And to the point of like, yeah, we're not talking. And it's just like, okay, so then I remembered about this practice. And the very first time I did it, like we were on the verge of breaking up, separating. And I did this practice, and not only did I feel an energetic shift within myself, I got more peaceful, I got more hopeful, and knew that there was potential for healing. So that happened for me. And so this also, what I noticed is that it shifted my partner, who was determined not to talk to me at the time, right? And suddenly, like, this 2-day standoff of my partner not coming to talk to me and wanting to talk about the situation suddenly melted, and we were talking. And this happened really right after I did this practice. So this is what I know, is that it's a powerful practice. It is an ancient practice. And today, now, this time in the world, it needs more of us doing this, because literally we can have a huge impact, not only in our own relationships and on the people around us, but I do believe that we can impact world events like this. So for instance, we could look at what's happening in Israel right now, and we could look at the people from Palestine, the Hamas, and we can relate to that experience in some way. Like, if it angers us, if we feel like, how dare they, how could they kill innocent babies, how could they hurt people like this, how could they do it? Well, first you have to think, like, what if you were there and you had generation after generation after generation of this conflict that you were born into, right? And perhaps you've had family members who have been killed by the other side. Or perhaps you feel oppressed. And so if your whole culture is like full of that sort of energy of revenge, if your whole world seems unsafe, I think we all could admit that it's possible that we do these kinds of things. It's like, I can admit it for myself. If I were standing in their shoes, maybe I could be capable of some things like that. And this is the part that we want to forgive. We're forgiving it in ourselves. We're asking the whole of humanity to forgive us for holding this energy. So this is how it makes sense. So when I say, I'm sorry, what I'm sorry for is the capacity within me to be vengeful. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. You are a part of me. I am a part of you. What happens to you happens to me. What happens to me happens to you. I love you. Thank you. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I've come to see this. I'm grateful that we're together in this evolution. So I just wanted to touch in on this powerful practice. If you're not familiar with Dr. Hew Len, he made this practice kind of famous in the West. I don't know, I think it's been maybe 10, 15, 20 years when I first heard this story. So Dr. Hew Len was from this tradition, the Hawaiian tradition, kahuna tradition, and practiced, knew the power of Ho'oponopono. And he was hired as the therapist. I don't know if he's a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but he was hired at this criminally insane hospital. And what was happening at that location, it was hard to find people to actually work there because it was dangerous. Like, these people who were in this hospital had done violent things in the world. They had murdered people, killed people, raped. I mean, you name it. These people had done these things. And in a little over a year, I think it was, Dr. Hugh Lynn was able to facilitate the closing of that hospital, because most of the people had either gotten well or gotten to a point where they could be in a lower security environment. Like, they were no longer a danger. I invite you to look up this story on the internet. I don't really want to go into all the details of it, but it's a fascinating story, and it's what got me interested in doing this practice. Because you know what he did? He didn't see these people at all. He didn't visit one single patient. What he did is he opened up their files. He looked at the things that they had did, the atrocities that they had done. He looked at, he felt into it. It's like the anger that it brought up in him, the shock, and notice that, like, hey, this is a part of me. If this is coming into my world, then what I know is that energy that somehow this person, it took them over, that energy is also in me. I need to release it. I need to do something. So that's what he did. He did the Ho'oponopono practice with each of these patients. He never saw them. He never saw them, and yet they got well. So this is the power that we have to bring. It can sometimes feel like we are helpless in this world, like we can't do anything. But what I know is if we bring energy medicine, this is medicine. This is vibrational medicine I'm talking about here. So this is clearing out those energies. It's not only going to bring us healing, it's not only going to do something in our own experience in our own life, but the people that we work with, the connections that are karmically bound in negative emotion can be released, dissolved through this practice. So I wanted to bring that today. It seems so timely in what is happening in our world. And I'm actually in a separate video going to actually work with what's called the full Ho'oponopono prayer. I found it on the internet. It's hard to find. It's so beautiful. And I wanted to share that with you as well. So stay tuned for that one. It'll come very soon, the full Ho'oponopono prayer. But in the meantime, I'm going to invite you to use this practice, to do this work. It is powerful, and I promise you, you will have an experience. So one more time, the steps are this. I am sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I am sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. So those are the steps. I invite you to write them down, start to work with it. It's powerful. If there's anyone in your life that you're working with some sort of feeling of resentment, if you're holding a grudge, do this. Come back, comment, tell me how it went, okay? Because what I know is it absolutely helps us in this healing process, and the world needs all of us to do this work. So again, my name is Sece Foster. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for being willing to do what it is that's yours to do in this time. Obviously, you landed here because you're being called for your own spiritual awakening. You're being called to explore and discover. So thank you for being here. I'm going to invite you before you go to subscribe, and blessings to all of you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.